Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 23rd of February, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at the dollar. We're seeing that still below the cloud. Remembering below the cloud is bearish, above the cloud is bullish. It's that simple. This is my weekly, my daily, and my 60-minute chart. Long-term, medium-term, and short-term view of the market with the corresponding point and figure targets. So dollar weakness continues, and that means that we are seeing the euro holding its trends against the dollar. We're down very slightly this morning, but we did find support here on the daily cloud, so that's significant. Sterling holding that 140 level very easily now against the dollar, hitting the highest level since the Brexit vote. So we're hitting multi-year highs here on sterling. Got good upside targets, much higher from here. Notice how all these targets were met. New short-term target 146.76, so another 4% higher. So sterling really powering ahead, mostly on vaccine data, which we'll take a look at in a minute. Looking at the euro against sterling, we're seeing sterling stronger here as well, hitting that 115.79 level. We've got targets to 116.86 is the short-term target, 120. Sterling really going through a turnaround there, not quite turning on the long-term trend, just still has some work to do, but looking pretty good all the same. Big reversal in the fortunes of Bitcoin, down 12% overnight. It's down today actually as well, so we're seeing really a big move down to bearish there. We did have a downside target here on Bitcoin. Remembering if you're trading Bitcoin, keep an eye on the 1 minute charts. 44,000 is the downside target that was given after that thrust through the 51,000 level. So that's key. We do have a downside target. In an uptrend like this, we would not be surprised to see the downside target not quite met. So you attach that importance to the targets. Take a look at my point and figure course for that. US markets ended up not being as big a sell-off yesterday. We saw the S&P still holding on to its bull trend. That's locked the upside column. So if we do make new highs, that's a 15% upside, but we have to make new highs now to activate that. The Nasdaq also fell back, so we're seeing tech actually turning bearish there, so that is significant for tech. Looking at the futures, we're down further this morning, only slightly on the S&P future, but we are down further on the Nasdaq future, so it does suggest tech is really starting to see a little bit of a sell-off there. And looking at the VIX volatility, we're up 2%. We are short-term bullish, which means that the fear index is rising, not so good for markets. Not worrying yet on the longer-term charts, but for the short term, we are just seeing an increase in the VIX, which is showing markets are fearful in the short term. The FTSE future is down this morning, down 0.25%. Not quite managing still to get into long-term territory. We haven't really got back to the highs seen a year ago, so that's still significant for the UK market. The DAX future is down 1%, and the DAX in Germany down just under 1%. So European markets falling. We're seeing the CAC Quarante actually not down as heavily, down only 0.1%. Japan was up 0.4%, so that is just holding its gains, making 30-year highs on the main index, and the Hang Seng up 1% in Hong Kong, looking strong still. China was down slightly, and the Aussie market was actually up 0.2%. Resource stocks improving there. We are seeing a bit of a flight to commodities at the moment, so that's good news for Oz. Taking a look at gold now, we're seeing gold actually broke back to bullish yesterday. So we really did find support on this previous support level, 1764, and so we're looking pretty strong on that level, and that is cloud support for the long-term chart. So we want to see that hold. We need to break this level here clearly, and we've got really a trading range now. We've got to break above that sort of 1960 level. If we see 2000 on gold, we're likely to run, and of course if we make new highs, we activate that big upside target to $3,000. Silver still looking pretty bullish, holding bullish trends on all three time frames. $30 is the mark there that we need to break, but still looking very strong. US 10-year yields ticking up to 1.38%. The trend is really, really strong here. It'll be interesting to see if we can break through the cloud on that longer term chart. And if we look at US T-bonds, the 30-year bond, we did spike at one point to 234. So we're back to 2.19%. So we are seeing a lot of volatility in the bond markets at the moment. Looking at the energy mix, we've got Brent crude up 1% this morning, so that's looking pretty strong, really just continuing to rise. We were actually neutral for the week on crude oil, we just couldn't call it, but it's looking more bullish now. It looks like we are going for those trends, so that's quite key there. Change of fortunes, looking at those 1 minute charts. Looking at WTI, similar, we're up this morning at $62, so looking very strong there as well. US nat gas not looking as good, 291. We're actually bearish on gas this week, so that's looking more bearish as well. So we're seeing that there. Coal is actually looking stronger this morning, and it is crossing the cloud on the 60-minute chart, but the trend is still pretty much down, although we are just seeing a change in fortunes there. No real clear upside targets to play for there. Keep an eye on your 1 minute OTC charts and the corresponding targets. The same here in the emissions. We are still below the cloud. We do have a little mini upside target, so just a bit of a mixed picture. The long-term trends still look great, of course. Gas markets recovering a little bit this morning. We were bearish gas this week. We're still below the trend here, so we're seeing a little bit of a rebound, but we do have these big downside targets hanging over, so we don't expect that to be long-lived. And the same with TTF, of course. We are still below the cloud, and really €17 was the floor. Once we were through that €17 level on TTF front month, that was not good for the price. German power has surprised this morning. That's up 0.6%, and again, we were bearish this week, just moving below the cloud. We do still have downside targets hanging over us, so not looking great still. And if we look at Nordic power, that is looking better, although we have really fallen through the cloud here, hitting these downside targets, so still not a great looking chart. Just taking a look at the COVID-19 data, remembering this is coming from our world and data, so you can just configure your Updata system now to add that as a feed. It's a website that has all the data on it, and we just read that data from there. So really cool. We're seeing cases not falling in France, falling quite heavily now in the UK. Germany fairly flat, and the US falling, although we have hit this milestone of 500,000 deaths in the US, 121,000 in the UK, 84,000 in France, and 68,000 in Germany. So interesting how Germany has seen its death rate increasing after an amazing start in the year, earlier in the year. Looking at the death rate, we're seeing slight ticks up in France and and the US as well. So sorry, in Germany and the US as well. So not looking great there. The vaccine rate, of course, in the UK miles ahead. And interestingly, the number of ICU patients in France still worrying. So just keeping an eye on these data does just help us see the situation in terms of the charts rather than everything that you hear on the news. So I quite like to be able to do that. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.